Hello and welcome to this week's live weekly warm-up. Just real quick, if you are a YouTube subscriber and you just got like 3 notifications that I went live on YouTube, there was a little bit of technical difficulties, but we got it all sorted out. Now everything is working properly. I'm really excited for today's weekly warm-up, which is going to be a little bit of a challenging one. So I'm excited to share that with you. In this one, we're going to be getting into those Altissimo notes, which are the even higher notes than the Clarion. Remember, the Clarinet has 3 main registers. There's the Shallow, which is all the low notes, the Clarion, which is the ones that use the register key, and then we get into the Altissimo when we have like C sharp is the first Altissimo note, and then everything above that. There's also sort of a super Altissimo, which is a next register above that, which I'll talk about in this video as well. So let's talk a little bit more about what these different registers mean and how they actually work. So if you're familiar with how a brass instrument works at all, like thinking about the trumpet, they only have these 3 valves, but they can play a lot of different notes. And the way that they do that is they play these different combinations of tube lengths with the valves, but they do it on different partials. So they have their like fundamental partial, and then they have the next partial and the next partial and the next partial. Woodwind instruments have a lot more keys, but we still have these different partials, and that's actually what those different registers are. The Shallow is the first partial, the Clarion's the second partial, and then the Altissimo is the third partial. The exercise that we're going to do today is going to be working on transitioning through all of those different partials, and it's very similar to the over the break long tones that we've done before, where you go from the Shallow up into the Clarion, but now we're going to go Shallow, Clarion, and then Altissimo in the same kind of fashion where we're still playing the same fundamental and moving up through the partials. So what does that mean? What we're going to be doing is actually figuring out what the fundamental is for each of the Altissimo notes, which will be really useful to know, and then we'll demonstrate it in this exercise. So let's start with C sharp, which is our first Altissimo note. So if we take C sharp and then we sort of follow that back down through the partials, the way we do that is we pretty much find basically the same fingering. I'll walk you through all of them so that you know what they are. So C sharp goes down. If you just put this finger down, then that's an E. And then if you just take the register key off, then it's an A. So the fundamental note is A, and then we go up to E, and then we go up to C sharp. Another way that you can remember it is that it's always from the lowest note, from the Shallow note. It goes up like a 5th or a 12th to be more precise. So A to E is a 12th because E is the 5th note of an A scale, and then it's also an extra octave. That's what makes it a 12th rather than a 5th. And then from there, it goes up to the 3rd note of the A major scale, which is C sharp. So it always goes root, 5th, and then 3rd with an octave in between each. Actually, it's not an octave from the E to the C sharp, but it's 2 octaves away from the original note. Sometimes it's a major 3rd, sometimes it's a minor 3rd. It sort of depends. As you get up into those higher partials, the frequencies are a little bit weirder, and you're actually sort of doing controlled squeaking at that point on the instrument, so it's not always exactly precise, and it can vary a lot by fingering, whether you're getting like a flat major 3rd or like a sharp minor 3rd to actually like get the note that you really want. There is also a sort of extra bonus advanced version of this where we go into the super Altissimo, which is what I call it, where you go A, E, C sharp, and then from here it's actually G. And then when you get to B flat, F, D, then the next one is G sharp, which is the sort of next note in the one more higher partial, even above that. So let me demonstrate playing this. I'm going to just start by demonstrating the normal one where we just go to the Altissimo, and then I'll also demonstrate the super Altissimo after that. And I'm going to do it on A up to C sharp, which gets us to F for just the normal Altissimo notes. This would be categorized as a long tone exercise, so be sure that you're doing this similar to long tone. So go ahead and listen. And you can hear it's a little squeaky. This is definitely a more tricky exercise, and it's really good to be finding those. And just like any other warm-up, really like repeat it and get comfortable with it until you can go from like one note to the next. So for me, if I was actually like practicing this, I would definitely do that G sharp to the F several more times to get comfortable with that. Colleen, I see you in the comments. Yeah, this is a little bit complicated. If this seems like really confusing, don't worry too much about it. This is quite an advanced exercise for really challenging yourself to move smoothly into the Altissimo. But maybe another way to think of it is we're basically playing basically the same fingering and then just moving through the different registers of the clarinet, so we can sort of match those registers together. So we have like the A, and the A can sound really nice and smooth, and then just like we've done with over the break long tones before, you can press the register key and get a smooth transition up to E with the register key, and then you basically just take this finger off, and that gets you into that Altissimo C sharp, like I just demonstrated when I was playing it. Another thing that you can do, another more advanced version of this exercise, is to actually move through those partials with just your like embouchure and voicing alone. That's where you just finger the fundamental note, and then you can sort of like have controlled squeaks up to those higher notes. That would go something like this. I'm going to demonstrate it on the C. So we go C, and then G without the register key though. Then E, again without the register key and without taking this finger off. So that's sort of a demonstration of how these partials work and how we can move through these different higher and higher partials and through the registers of the clarinet, just based off the fundamental notes of the clarinet. When we add the register key and when we like take this finger off, that's just sort of helping us and making it more in tune, because when you do it with just the fundamental fingering, it's not as in tune, because that's just how the partials work. I won't get into that. But that's how we go up through those partials. So maybe that helps make more sense and gives you a little insight into like when you're playing these weird, wacky Altissimo fingering notes and trying to remember what they are, because they seem really weird, because it's like, oh, I have to like play this fingering, but then take this finger off, and I have to put this key down. All that stuff is weird. You can sort of think about it like you're playing just like a chromatic scale, A sharp, B natural, C sharp, but you're doing it with the register key, with this finger off, and then with this key. And those are all just to help the pitch and help it get up there. So with this exercise, the whole point of it is to feel comfortable transitioning from those fundamental notes, those low scale notes in the shallow up into the clarion, and then up into the Altissimo. And like I said, this is a pretty challenging exercise already, but if you want to challenge yourself even more, you could also take it into the super Altissimo and get really comfortable sort of finding those voicings for each of the different partials. So I'll do that on just a couple notes so you can hear what that sounds like. Again, we're just taking like basically the same fingering up just one more partial. And actually the B natural doesn't really have one. That's where, like, as you get higher, the partials get closer and closer together, so they don't always make sense. So I'll skip the B natural and go to C. And then I could also do the C sharp is the last one that it works really well on, but I think you get the idea. I don't want to disturb my neighbors too much with the squeaky high notes this morning. Cool. This one is definitely a little bit more complicated. So if you have any more questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Even if you aren't watching this live, I'll definitely respond to your comments and answer those questions. But I hope this has been helpful and been a bit enlightening on how the registers of the clarinet work, and also how the higher partials Yeah, Colleen, I see. Why does the top note sound minor? It's not actually minor. It actually goes to a tritone at that point. This is, again, one of those weird things where like the partials and the harmonics get closer and closer and a little bit more weird as you go up, especially for the clarinet, because the clarinet is very unique in that it skips partials. So when we play like A to E, that's actually the first and third partial of the normal harmonic series. The clarinet's the only instrument that does that because of its cylindrical bore. So yeah, that top note, we sort of go first, fifth, third, and then from that third to the next note is a tritone. So it sounds really dissonant and weird going from the altissimo to the super altissimo. That was a good question. Cool. Great. I think that is it for this week. I will see you all next week with another weekly warm-up. Thanks so much for watching and have a great week. Everybody stay safe, stay healthy, and enjoy exploring these super altissimo notes and the altissimo notes and getting that right voicing and getting those smooth transitions up to there. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.